Welcome to the Attack the Paint show. My name is Revneet Singh, and let's talk some hoop. So, I want to recap the Final Four a little bit, talk about some of the NBA prospects that were playing. And the first game I want to go over is the Illinois versus UConn game. Um, in this game, I noticed UConn, they love to run a lot of pin downs for Mullins and Karaban. They did the same thing in the national championship game. But I think Terrace Reed was the player who stole the show here. He seems like a late first rounder at this point. In the championship game, which we'll get into, he kind of neutralized Ade Mara for the first half. So his defense in the post looks really good. Now outside of the post, not so good. He looks like he's going to struggle in the pick and pop and pick and roll coverage. That is what concerns me at the next level. That's why I don't think he'll be a starting caliber player in the NBA. I've heard a little bit of Andre Drummond comp. I kind of like that, like a poor man's Andre Drummond. Um, yeah, so I think he overall he does seem like an NBA player, but he seems more like a bench player. Um, he looks like more of a bench player than a starter at this point. But still, his stock improved overall throughout the tournament, and I think he did well for himself. Another player who did well, Keaton Wagler. Now, Wagler, actually, I would say he kind of struggled in this game, but at the same time, he did some things that were pretty impressive. He, one thing UConn was doing was they were going under every screen that was set for Wagler. So they were kind of daring him to shoot when he was shooting a lot of the times, a little bit too much. And I would have liked to see him attack a little bit more because every time he did attack, minus maybe one or two times, it was pretty effective. I remember there was one time where he was driving left, but he kind of ran into a double team and it became a turnover for UConn. I mean, for Illinois, that led to a transition play for UConn. But other than that, Wagler is so interesting because he reminds me of Shane a little bit in terms of he's kind of like a herky jerky player, very strange, but he's able to get to the basket and get to his spots. And you kind of can't explain it because he's not driving extremely fast. But he knows his angles and he knows just how to get to a spot, get low when he's driving. And he has a good handle. So I think even though he didn't have the best shooting performance, I was impressed with Wagler in this game. Um, Now I want to go to Andrej Stojakovic. Full disclosure, Peja Stojakovic is one of my favorite players of all time, and so I have a soft spot for his son. But I think Stojakovic, Andrej needs to stay. He needs to stay in college for another year. He just cannot. He's not shooting very well. You could tell that he didn't even want to shoot. He just wanted to attack the basket, and when he did attack, a lot of the times he would go to his floater, and a lot of times he would even like lean forward towards the basket, and he would get the foul drawn. I don't know if that's really going to work in the NBA, but I do like his aggressiveness, and I think that will translate. But you can't be a wing player and not be able to shoot for the most part in the NBA unless you're like Amen, unless you're the Thompson brothers. So I have some of his shooting numbers from his 3 years, which were all at different schools. His first year was at Stanford, and he shot 32, almost 33%. Then he played at Cal, 32%, and in Illinois he shot 24.4%. So he's trending downwards there. However, his free throw percentage improved from 52% and it's hovered between 80 and 81% the last 2 years. So the free throw percentage and his touch around the basket kind of indicate that he has potential to be a good shooter at the next level. But right now, he's not a good shooter, and I don't think he would succeed in the NBA unless the NBA team is really willing to put a lot of effort and development into him. So I think for him, the best thing would be to go back to college and get shooting lessons from your dad or something, because if he could improve the jumper and still have this aggressiveness attacking the basket, then he's an NBA player. And I really hope that that becomes the case. So my advice for him: go back to college, improve the shooting. Anything else in this game? Um, yeah, just some stuff I noticed on Wagler. Got a little bit too shot happy, like I said, because they were going under the screen. Um, so I think this Final Four, and kind of the two best players, that the two highest drafted players in this Final Four were Keaton Wagler and Braylon Burries, and we're gonna get into Burries, but I have a pick on who I would rather have after watching this tournament, this Final Four, I should say. So let's get to the next game, Arizona versus Michigan, and Burries had a tough shooting day. He can be a streaky shooter. That's been kind of part of his game. The good thing is that he's also able to get to his spots, and he's also able to take and make tough shots. He just wasn't doing it in this game where they needed it. The shooting for Arizona was tough. It looked ugly. Even in the national championship game, both teams, it was an ugly game. Neither team shot very well. Now, yeah, the good thing, Burry's able to get his shot off. Bad thing, wasn't going down. Did this game hurt his stock? Probably not, but I think you there were some concerns that um, if you had concerns about him going in, I think they weren't resolved after this. I had some concerns about Koa Pete also going into this game, and I think those concerns also bear true in that he's a little bit undersized. He can't shoot. He tried to shoot a lot of pull-up jumpers, and a lot of them were not falling. Size really impacted him. Ade Mara really gave him fits, and that's going to continue to the next level. So he's really like an old school traditional power forward, where if he was playing in the 80s, 90s, he would be a top 5 pick. But because the game is so different now, I don't think I have him in my lottery at this moment. And if he is in the lottery, he would be, I think, a late lottery pick to mid to late first rounder. I don't know if I have him. I don't have him in my top 10. I could tell you that much. So I'm a little bit lower on Koa just because the shooting's not there. He's not attempting many shots from outside, and he tries to play bully ball similar to Boozer, but is just less effective there as well, especially against size. So those are kind of my thoughts on Koa Pete. Ade Mara, he was the MVP of this game. They maybe would have won with, I don't know if they would have won it with or without him, but he was dominant. He was really dominant in this game. He looked like a top 10 pick if you were looking at that game, but obviously we have to look at the entire season and then how he did in the next game, which we'll get into. But he was affecting a lot of shots at the basket, and Arizona is a big team, and he still was affecting. He looked like the best player on the court, like I said. So it looked like he had way more blocks than he did. When I checked the box score, he only had 2. But very impressive finish by Ade. Also, I'm impressed with his passing. He has some interesting court mapping skills. He'll catch the ball in the post like he did against UConn, and he just looks okay. Is someone open in the corner? No. Okay, I'm gonna go to my post game. I really like stuff like that, where you could catch the ball, examine the floor, and then go to your post game. So yeah, I like him. I think he really struggled in the UConn game because of Terrace Reed defending him. I don't know. I could see some people clamoring for him to be a top 10 pick. I'm not there right now. But I'm more open to it. I have to examine the film a little bit more. I am worried about his pick and roll, pick and pop defense, just like Terrace Reed. I think anyone at that size is going to concern me. But with the NBA getting bigger and teams needing an answer for Wembanyama, then I think teams are going to be intrigued by this 7'4" Spaniard, and they should be because he's very skilled. And I've heard the Zach Edey comps. He is faster than Zach Edey. He reads the floor better than him, but Edey passed well out of the post and out of doubles too. Um, but Mara seems more skilled. I don't think I think Edey was the better college player, but I think Mara will be the better NBA player. So those are kind of my thoughts on that game. The only other thing I would say is that Elliot Cadeau kind of struggled in that game. Maybe wasn't the healthiest, but he had two back-to-back threes that really sealed the game, and it was with around 12 minutes left in that game. And after that, it just felt like this game was over. So Yaxel hurt in this had a strained MCL, so he didn't look the greatest. He didn't look the greatest in the national championship game, which we'll get into. But he still was able to impact both games because of his size and because he will just like in the national championship game, he just sealed his defenders, running down the court and was able to get a couple layups, I think. So, um, Yaxel also should be considered to pick highly. A lot of it's going to come down to his age, and that's a tricky thing. But we'll get more. I'll talk more about Yaxel in another time. Um, Michigan versus UConn national championship game. Elliot Cadeau being in foul trouble the first half really hurt them, but in the second half, he kind of seemed like the best player on the court. He was the MVP of this game, I would say, and Mara got neutralized in the against Reed, like I said. So someone had to step up. It wasn't going to be Yaxel with him being hurt, so it ended up being Cadeau. Um, yeah, one more. Elliot. I think he made the first three of the game, or at least for Michigan in the second half. Shooting was really tough to watch in this game. Alex Karaban had a lot of shots that he normally makes, a lot of threes, and he just missed them. Same thing with Mullins. And I feel like if they just had hit their average, then they would have possibly won the game. But you could say the same thing for Michigan. So it goes both ways. But Karaban just missed a lot of shots that I thought he would hit. I did like one drive where he got the ball coast to coast and he finished. That was tough. That was one of the most impressive plays I've seen from him this whole tournament. But I don't know if I see him as he's going to be interesting because I could see the way that he could be an NBA player, but it's going to be tough for him because of defense. And so I personally wouldn't draft him, but I could see him if he does get drafted. I think it will be mid to late second, and possibly undrafted. But I think he could find his way on an NBA roster if he, can work on his defense a little bit. That's the main concern I have for him. So those are kind of my thoughts on him. Also, Morez Johnson, if not their best player, he was definitely their second best player. He was their best player in the first half because Cadeau got in foul trouble. I think the only other player I really want to talk about is Mullins, and Mullins obviously had that crazy shot against Duke. One thing about him is that when he's not making shots, then it's like how are you affecting the game? So he did have one two offensive rebounds. I think one put back against Michigan in the national championship game. But um, besides that, he did have also a couple other hustle plays, which is good because I want to see that from him. I want to see other things besides shooting because his shot wasn't falling, and when it eventually, near the end of the game, it did start to fall, and that was good. So I do see NBA talent. I do think he's a first round player, first round grade on him, but yeah, there's just some concerns I have, like how when your shot's not falling and your defense isn't the best, how are you impacting the game? So I think that's pretty much it I had. I just got to give a lot of credit for UConn for trying, they try hard as hell. I mean, they try really hard. They never give up, and it showed in that Duke game, and it showed yesterday against Michigan. They never give up. Um, but shout out to Michigan, great season. It's good to see them win after, just good to see Michigan win after the Fab Five thing never went. They never won from that, and the Trey Burke team never won, and then the Franz Wagner team kind of came short too. So it was good to see Michigan, win. But either way, it would have been a great story. Um, Last thing I would say, there was a broken play at the end where Reed almost got the. I mean, he got the steal, but and then saved the ball out to Ball, who missed the layup. That and then the other end, Michigan gets the ball and makes a shot in transition, um, a three, and that really sealed the game. But it's crazy. It's a crazy what if. What if Ball had made that layup, and it would have been a 4 point game. That would have been fun to watch. So that's all I have. Thanks for watching. I appreciate all the support on anything. If you like, subscribe. I really appreciate it. So thanks for watching.